All right, this is our monthly EDA meeting. It's July 23rd. And we have enough for a quorum, so we'll go ahead and Rebecca, if you want to call, roll
Yes, Ryland,
here.
Jamie, here, Paul,
Here.
Adam,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
Jan,
Here.
and Kathy. Here. Beautiful.
All right, we have our copies of the July meeting agenda. The one thing, okay, so anything, agenda look okay or any changes or amendments?
There is a small change to it from the one that you guys had emailed out to you. The one that emailed out to you, we did have under new business, a section B to discuss the subdevelopment, but since it's going on to a special meeting and I'd already sent them out, we just removed that off of the agenda for today.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second.
I'll second.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approved. Next item is our June 25th EDA minutes, which is attached. Rebecca does a very thorough and minutes, so we appreciate that.
She does that pretty good when she's sitting there clicking away over documents.
I do.
Works pretty good that way. Somebody can keep up.
I have one question. When I brought up the walk-in item. And I believe, and this could be covered in here, but I was just wanting to make sure maybe there's nothing to cover. But you were gonna check.
Yep.
And see, and then add it to the agenda for this week, but I didn't see it on the agenda, so I'm just assuming there's nothing to talk about.
No, there isn't, but I actually did make sure that I added that. I'm going to be adding that to the agendas on the next ones, but Jason did go ahead and check it out. So we did check there wasn't anything, but I will have that on the next one. I promise that.
Okay, no problem.
Hi.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
Second.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's approved.
Right. It is for these guys just come walking in. Yeah. I believe they're both from Cedar Woodlands. And just to know that that discussion was taken off this agenda.
Yeah, it was
They may
taken
have
off of
seen
the
it.
agenda for tonight because of the special meeting
You may have seen
that the council's having. That was just in anticipation of the council making a decision. So I do apologize for that.
That was thoughtful. That's thoughtful.
I just, I knew that was the case.
Okay, so our next item is the guest public input.
Did you have anything you wanted to? Okay.
Seeing none, we'll go to our new business. Is there a final report in front of you?
This one's gone through about 2 different peer reviews, so we got every comma hopefully in the exact right spot. Look, there was definitely some punctuation changes, but otherwise, all of the recommendations have been added, graphics, all of that has been updated. One thing to note on the table of contents up in the front, if you're ever looking for the recommendations versus the sections, it does give you both of those sets of pages so that if you were looking at housing, for example, you could find the data that came back in on housing on page 13, but the goals and recommendations would start on page 17.
Great information.
Open for discussion at this point. Questions?
Yeah.
Ryland? Open for discussion.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Of
perfect.
course.
Okay, So first, thank you again for all your work that you've put into this. I think the feedback from the community is that they've appreciated the opportunity to come to the open house and provide information from the survey. And I think our group has had multiple opportunities to have discussion too, so I appreciate that. One of the questions that I have is how do we turn this into an action plan? I appreciate that every section has recommendations. But I don't know if CETA has a format or if how do we get to, it's a lot to take on. Also, some of it seems more timely than others, depending on our current state. We also talked about doing some deeper analysis of market readiness. Is that part of today's discussion, or I just would love
It
some
certainly,
clarification?
certainly can be, because I think the best way for us to be able to do that is once the plan has been approved itself, then we'll be able to say, okay, well, let's take a look at all of the goals. We can line them all out and prioritize them. And then once we've got them prioritized, then we can start assigning, timetables, what we're actually looking for out of each of those. So I think that's probably the way I envisioned it happening,
Sure.
but
Sure, okay.
and I know that some of those will be forwarded on to other committees, because for example, where there's some where it needs to go to planning and zoning to go see something, or city council needs to be addressing a certain item. So all of those recommendations will also be given to city council, and a copy of the report has already been put in all of the council members' inboxes for them to have a copy.
One thing that might be kind of interesting to do is, WSB is doing another community engagement thing. And I think maybe before we actually approve this, we get some people from, let them do that at the, very new National Night Out in Gold Rush. And maybe get some more input from the city and some of the, maybe they could help us pick out what would be the important parts to do first.
Who's WSB?
It's who's rewriting, it's a company out of the cities that's rewriting our code. And it would be very, maybe very critical for them to take a look
Land
at
use
some of
code
this.
151.
I do think their input is very helpful, especially in determining what type of activities we're gonna do first, but I wouldn't necessarily want it to influence the data within this, because this was specifically based on our community engagement process.
I don't think it would influence, you could influence the data within it, because that's already
Right.
tested and placed in here.
Yeah,
It would give the community a chance to look at it and look it over.
yeah.
It's
It'll be posted online, the website.
Once, hopefully we'll get it approved tonight so that we can do that. 'Cause that way it'll be released to the public, because it's approval of it does not mean we're going to go ahead and do each of the recommendations. It also doesn't limit us just to any of those recommendations. So approving it just basically says, yes, we've read through it. It's appropriate to release to the public at this point, so that they know what the results are from our process.
So from my understanding from the discussion is that we'd be approving this, but the next step is to build an action plan, which
Yeah.
would give you and the city direction, or whomever partners direction on what to prioritize.
Absolutely.
So there may be an opportunity then for WSB or others to participate in helping to guide those
Absolutely.
prioritizations.
Yeah, because if they brought in what they think some of our action items should be, we'd be able to take those and enter those right into our plan then.
They also have a component where they started a new website. Do you remember what it is, Paul? Growing Orinoco? I forgot what we settled on.
There was four, I don't really remember.
It's basically the website is the actual survey, but after their work is all done, they're handing that website over to the city. And I'm sure we'll be a part of it, because it's essentially what our mission is with Growing Orinoco. So, but that being said, this would be really good information to go on that website as well.
The
Are they
growing,
aware of this work?
What
WSB is?
website?
They are.
the growing Orinoco was one of the taglines that they were talking about for it, so. You see if I can bring it up here. During committee research.
What's the website you're referring to?
It's the one that he's looking up. So basically, as part of the survey that the steering committee is doing, that WSB is spearheading, they're putting out the survey online. So then you go to this particular website and then you click, and then you can go through the survey for more input on city codes and things like that. I think they're also using it as an education platform
I believe so.
to educate on what city code actually is.
A place for people to ask questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just gonna show you theirs.
Could more context be provided? I'm missing a bit of information regarding the work that's being, the steering committee. I'm not familiar. I may have missed something. Where is that called? For the WSB business.
It's a steering committee.
From where? Out of here?
We,
Planning and zoning,
Oh,
yes,
zoning?
a committee of planning and zoning.
Well, it's a committee of, how many are on there? It's 7 of us on it, isn't it?
what,
Okay.
something like that.
There's a couple planning, just both Jim and Wendy Phillips are on it, Jeff's on it, I'm on it.
So direction out of planning and zoning for the steering committee to work on updating the code.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't tracking the context, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay,
Planning and zoning, I think this is where it came from. I mean, Ryland, you may be able to,
So it's planning and zoning. It came to council for approval.
okay.
We went on to an RFQ for the different companies that could provide that service.
Okay, thank you for
Request
connecting
for
dots. I
proposal.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
At the end of the
WSB
day.
was selected, so
Okay,
it's a year-long project.
okay.
It'll be wrapped up next February, March.
And can you describe the purpose again of the review? Like the end goal is to receive what, an updated?
Sure, I can
you're probably
try to
better
do
at
better.
explaining.
Basically, it's our 151
Okay,
code. It's a land use code, it's Title 10, I think it is, on our website. And it's a code that was written back in early 2000, probably, maybe a little later. So in the code itself, it's long. Within that code, there's a lot of duplication, in some cases controversial.
Yep.
Because it's
Familiar.
not complete, as
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
All experience so far. So that part of this code is to go through it first. And the steering committee is kind of leading the direction of responding back to what's being developed. I guess it's a
Okay.
project line, a deadline of, it's a year, 12-month project.
Okay.
Costs a lot of money and to the city, so they're working on that, and the plan is to come out with a new 151 code that's simpler, easier to read, more photos. Just overall, an overall reaction.
But by going on this WSB website and looking at Growing Orinoco, it will outline what's going on.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, there's information on there. Yes. They also wanted to promote it on the electronic message centers so that the community has it as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's connected to the city site yet. I don't remember if
I
they,
don't think it is.
yeah,
So is there a date that it's gonna be made public, or is it?
Well, I can't say there's a date it's gonna be made public, but they want more community engagement at National Night Out.
Oh, I see,
To
okay.
expose it to the community for them to see what this
That's
is
kind of
about.
kicking it off that night. Okay.
For context, I think for the group, lots of cities are going through code updates. Rochester just went through, you might have heard them through the news, talk about the Unified Development Code. So it's a deep review, so that it is clear, more understandable. So when you have conversations about growth, it's really clear and it reviews everything. So it is very common right now for cities to go through it, just for some context.
I thought it was interesting too from WSB. The goal with city code is to not have it be complicated, right? So if you want to do something to your home, you could easily with pictures, see how a footing has to be poured, or, very descriptive in its nature on giving all the tools to the residents to be able to do something, or businesses or whomever. So that it's the exception to have to apply for a variance or to have it to go to planning and zoning. They want the code to be so easy that once a permit is applied for, it's within the parameters already because you're understanding what it is. And it just, yep, you're inside of what it is, it gets approved and you just go on doing what you need to do.
They're trying to keep things from contradicting one another in it.
Right.
There's so many things in there that has caused issues in the past that this says this paragraph says this, which is it?
So the question is that you did an excellent job in putting this together. My question would be, how long does this last? Is it a biannual? Or I mean, every 2 years you would do another report like that? In other words, you go back to the public and say, what are you thinking now?
Well, there
I-
isn't actually a template for it. This is kind of just a one-time thing, but I know that the idea of getting that public input going on a regular basis, not to mention a ton of responses of people saying they'd love to be able to do something like this again. It's absolutely something that based on whatever you guys wanted for a timeline, we could certainly plan on it and then we could just update with data each time because
What-
all of it could be added to what we currently have.
I guess what I have seen in doing this, I think that once you send this out and you put it on the web and people look at it and they see how well it's done and they start reading it, I think they realize it's a real deal. The real deal is that you need to be involved. The next time a survey comes out, you need to get involved in the survey if you want your voice heard versus saying, well, I didn't send it in because it's just a survey and I'm not gonna do it, but I really don't like anything they said, but you didn't put anything in it, so you really don't have any room to say anything about it because you had the opportunity. And as I see Orinoco growing and that's what's going on out of the subdivision and what they all want to do there, when I take a look at this, I think that the people in Orinoco are starting to realize that this is a real deal, that the city is in the next 5 to 10 years is going to change drastically. And they have an input of what they want to see it is. And I think the more they involve themselves, it helps groups like us, city council, planning, zoning, a lot of different things that helps us shape a direction of how they want their city to look versus someone trying to say, this is what we think it should be to input. So I truly believe when you see how well this is put out and people see that it's a real deal and start reading it, the next time around, there might be a change that they don't change some of the stuff, but some parts of this they might be really active in. And I feel that that's transparent and that's allowing the people to have their input. So we truly see which way, and the developers, when they come to town and see us or whatever they do, they really see kind of what the people are wanting and looking for, which makes everything faster and easier versus butting heads. Just my thought process. But again, it's an excellent job, but I really don't think that a lot of people thought that Orinoco was gonna move as quickly or things were gonna change as quickly as what they're gonna change. And I think the chance there, especially when you see the new dollar store coming in, they see that. People say, well, what's going there? Why is that going there? And why didn't we know? You've got your sign running. What I'm just saying is that people are gonna have input and say, especially when the restaurant opens up there. As they said, then maybe the strip mall comes in and doing things. So just my thought process.
I agree a lot. The one thing though, I wondered about this is there are some objective things that were noted that are going on
Mhm.
that citizens aren't happy about.
Yep.
And how do we address those and talk about those openly? So citizens do feel like they have a voice, because some of the things are concerning. If you don't have your infrastructure set, you don't have a working system, you can't
Right.
really, you can't do anything. So I just wonder how those kinds of things will be looked at and addressed. Does that
Um,
make sense?
Were they ones that were in the recommendation area, the sections? Because I think one thing I could plan to do is for the next meeting, I can plan to go through the recommendation sections and just take out each of them so that we could maybe discuss them one by one to
That'd be
decide.
excellent.
I was gonna
Priority?
suggest that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It forces us to read it
Yeah, because
instead of just put it on the shelf when you get home.
Yep.
Is that we have some,
it's great information.
pick 2 or 3 sections of it or 4 sections and maybe try and do it in 2 monthly meetings and just.
And I want to draw your
be ready to
attention
discuss it.
to the fact, Jeff noticed this, if you look at page 60, it then jumps to page 67. It's because the community identity section is missing from this printout. So I will email that all to you guys, so just so you're aware. It's not hiding somewhere. It's missing. So that's where that gap in the numbers.
Here, huh?
Yep,
What's it called? What's that section?
the community identity section. And that'll be pages 61 through 66.
That was in, I left the draft at home.
Yep, and it was in the draft, yeah, but it wouldn't have had any of the recommendations. So I'll make sure that that particular section gets emailed out to you guys as well as an updated full copy.
Well, this is the updated full copy, right?
Yes, but it's missing a section from the
Right.
printout, yeah.
But this is better than this, which is.
Yep. That one had the same data, but it didn't have any of the recommendations, and there was a little bit of extra information that I put through there
Yes,
too.
it's, I guess possible service, print it all. I can take the staples out, and I can put 3-hole punch, put it in a 3-ring binder, so you would wanna just give us, instead of printing this whole thing again, or to do something, just give that section, because I can surely put it in my 3-ring binder.
Yeah.
Yep,
And open that
absolutely.
section up, so you're not printing and redoing.
Well, if she emails it, you can print it, so.
I can print it, I can do it, if you email, I can print it, and I can put it.
Otherwise, I did buy a weighted paper for these just because it doesn't show the colors on both sides. So we do have more of that left. So I'll ask Renee to print off that section for everybody, and then you can either pick it up at the next meeting if you want to wait. Otherwise, like for you guys, we can throw them in your council boxes, but otherwise, if we just stop in, we can have.
This is a nice, it's on nice paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll just rewrite
Almost
content
bound.
and put it in my binder here, and then it's done.
Yep, I'll make sure I get that to Renee. That way you guys get it on the same stuff.
In fact, when you said that it's in here, but you didn't have the recommendation, so can we take this apart? And then you just print the recommendation. I just was trying to make it as simple for you
Right.
guys as to.
Is that right?
It's simple for you, but
Okay, well, you can
It's over
print
my
away. I just,
Kevin's teasing.
We'll get them for you.
I'm all about government spending and how we spend our way.
Ready to collect
I-
copies?
I-
You decide.
I have some follow-up questions about engagement and communications after next steps after this, but I want to wait until the group has a chance to talk about any more sections in it or if there's other questions.
Well, I think I read through the first couple sections, but it's really interesting. I think it's gonna make for some great discussion and recommendations. I really hadn't spent time looking at those, but I'm anxious to see those.
yeah.
So I appreciate the conversation about moving this into a work plan, and I think Rylan, your recommendation of pulling pieces out and really diving into it as a group could be really helpful with sort of starting to build that out. I also wonder how we can keep our community involved. You know, we talk about it here, our minutes are posted, their public meetings are posted on the website, but it would be interesting to see if other communities have had any other successful engagement with continued conversation as we've looked to prioritize, whether it's through email or social media that gives people an opportunity to understand what we're talking about and provide more input. Along the way, I know that lots of us have conversations with our communities that we're in and around, but it'd be great for us to think about how we can continue to encourage more engagement, which I think is one of the identified kind of goals is to continue to do engagement and to build trust with our community. I think it's one way in which we can do that. I don't know from CETA if there's been other tools at this point that other cities have used to keep conversations going with these types of plans.
I know there's a couple that have done a similar process to this, so I will reach out and actually just double check with them what they have done to do follow-ups. Otherwise, I do also think that, we do have my contact information on the EDA website, and I do think when we release this information, we'll put a link out so that it's available on our Facebook page and our city website, main page, but I think it'd be good for people to be able to be directed to our EDA page and know that if they've got questions regarding the EDA specifically, they can email it to me so that we can address it right away at our next meeting. I guess that's one way to keep people active with it, but otherwise, if we wanted to look at doing a biannual or not biannual, but like every 2 years or every 1 year updates, we certainly could look at something like that.
I
Even
think
doing input at Gold Rush.
I think something that might be interesting to do would be to keep the update in mind for this next census coming up. It's only 6 years away. You know, and that's really gonna provide you, that's really gonna provide this group with what the city's actually done and how how things are, how things are moving around. Show all of the metrics of what's actually happened since. we got water and sewer.
One thing we heard at the in-person meeting with this 40, 45 people at the fire hall was, what's the follow-up? When are we gonna have the next meeting? So now that we have this, we can talk about, I think it'd be good to have a couple workshops. So those, whoever, the general public can come. And once this is online, we can put out identify what questions we want to hear more feedback on those different sections and just get more participation. And, you know, how much is over the 3-month period or 2 months, whatever the right time is, but I do think we should let people know that that's the decision from the EDAs to have a follow-up workshop in person, ask questions and ask for clarifications. We can share not only the report, but just the recommendations and have a discussion about the recommendations. And
I
just
think,
that community engagement, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
yeah, I think along both of those lines, the key, I mean, this was the first step, basically, like we talked about developing the brand of Orinoco. But how do we want the city to look and feel and, you know, kind of a bigger goal, but with the intent of sharing, okay, we engaged with the community to get all this feedback. The next step is what?
I would say it's the updating our comprehensive plan. And part of that was initiated last week at our council meeting, was to go out and get RFQs for companies to submit quotes for the comprehensive plan development. They can be $50,000. They're a very expensive operation, but it is something that we need to do since 2006. And this would be a great source. And what WS3 brings with with their surveys and the codes and just in general, I think would kind of make it, may take a year or so to get that comprehensive plan done, but it sure wouldn't be for a lack of input, that's for sure.
And I do think once, if we want to do, maybe at the next meeting, we can go through and kind of pick our priority listings. But if we wanted, we could also have the following meeting, maybe be an encouragement to the public to come in so that we could just do like a town hall style update on what all the content is. Or we could do it after the EDA meeting or before the EDA meeting or in a different night altogether. But it definitely is something where we could do something open to the public to encourage people to pop in and.
I really like that idea. Another, I mean, I think, like Rylan, like you said, the community was asking for continued engagement. I think we all believe in engagement. And so if we can look at some type of format that would be as welcoming as possible. So whether it's before or after a meeting like we did last time, where it doesn't feel so formal.
Right.
We can have conversations and each one of us are staying by a board or whatever it looks like, you know, to get input, we can figure out what the right questions are. I think that could be a really great step into helping people continue to digest this and give input along the way.
I think there's also a way to segment the information into, if the comprehensive plan is the ultimate goal and it's gonna take a year, what can we do a month from now? What can we do 3 months from now? What can we do 6 months from now? Based on this feedback, so that it doesn't feel to the community that, all right, this just gets put back into the machine.
Right.
Comes out in a year for whatever it is, you know, what can we do right now?
So
That, you know, to put it in
Short-term.
small chunks.
So I think we should discuss now what we want to accomplish between, or what do we want to bring back for the August 27th meeting? What's our first step? We want to take several sections, read them, identify what recommendations, you know, talk about those first 3 sections or whatever the number is you want to look at.
I thought we were talking about maybe bringing back having all the recommendations listed and going through those and prioritizing. That's
That's
what,
fine too. We have the time to go through all those. I haven't looked how many recommendations there are for each one, but.
It kind of ranges between like 3 to 6.
Okay, so it's not a
Typically.
lot, but just, okay.
But I mean, it certainly could be if everyone took some time just to go through, I mean, highlight the ones you think are really important. Feel free to make some notes, do whatever you need to in the document itself. That way, when we do come back, I'll have that all in a document for you guys for your next packet. That has just the recommendations in there so that then we can take a look at prioritizing and seeing, okay, how long do we think some of these things will take? And I'll look into some of that ahead of time so that I can put that on the list of recommendations. If there are ones that I think can go faster or that we can do sooner, I'll make sure that those are highlighted. I know one thing I actually brought up with Jason today is Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. They've worked with a lot of our CETA communities quite a bit. And they every year have a small town grant is what it's called. And it's a $10,000 grant that you can get to put towards certain types of city activities. And a city branding initiative is actually one of those things. So we might be able to go ahead and get $10,000 to put towards something like that. So it's things like that where we'd be able to say, oh, yes, not only is there something coming up, but there's money for that.
So when you identify something like that, is then that Jason's job to apply for that? Your job?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Yep. And I've done several successful ones of those. So they're used to seeing my name.
Great.
I think another thing too with that list that you compile is we should get it to WSB. Because they could be working on things that are already in the
Mhm.
recommendations. And it's like, well, we don't need to necessarily overlap and double up on what is already being done.
Right now, WSB is just working on a code. That's
Right,
what
but
they're
there's
talking.
things I'm sure inside the recommendations that address or
Mhm.
parallel with code or transparency or, you know,
Just that awareness. that we're-
communication, awareness. Yeah.
Well, I can work to get a copy of it. I'm sure Jason knows who the contact is for WSB and we can
Yeah.
forward that on and then make sure that any of for the next meeting, the list of actual recommendations, all that we can make sure that they get a copy of all that too.
I go through the P and Z chairperson.
Okay.
So are we gonna put this online then? Available online for the community to look at?
I would like to.
If we do that, is there a way we can keep track of the number of downloads? We know that, so we actually get a community engagement just by those that are gonna take it and download it. Make it so that they have to download it to see it. That way we have a count on who's getting involved and, or, you know, and how many are getting involved would be the big thing.
I'll check with Jason. I'm not sure what our website has the capability to do. But I think that's a great idea to be able to try and track that.
That would be a big thing to track, to know how many people are involved. And it may be one of the things to click on, and it would be, do they live in town or do they live in the township? Are they right here or are they our neighbors that are looking at it?
Right.
Something to know.
Well, yeah, because it'd also be interesting to find out if people are out of town. Are they developers that are downloading it versus?
Well, and if you
residents?
if you don't have the computer sophistication, maybe it's just as simple as a follow-up survey or something you can attach to the end of it where you call it from, where you inquire.
Good idea too.
There's no information in here that can't be made public, right? So sharing it on Orinoco's website, I think of Facebook is like, we're talking about meetings and bringing people in for meetings, but a lot of people like to be on their Facebook or I don't know if we do Instagram or whatever else, but and just click, and if they can just click to open it through the Facebook account, the City of Rochester or and their second one, Orinoco Citizens, that's pretty active. People like to chat in there and, you know, I feel like that would show engagement by us bringing this kind of thing to the Facebook pages too.
And that's something that
Yeah,
can be
lots of it.
tracked. The clicks, I know we can track. So like on Facebook, for example, we can have the announcement go out saying, hey, that's done, click here, it'll take you to the website where you can just download it straight from there. And at least those clicks, I know that we can track how many are on there.
Yeah. I'm not a big social media guy necessarily, but I know that a lot of people are, and that is a good way to engage. Obviously, easy, cheap for us, free.
Especially for your generation. So you're looking for tonight a motion to approve this as a tool that has been developed by the citizens of Orinoco to be moved forward with as a working document.
Yep, so that we can make it public and begin begin the work of addressing all the,
So can I make that motion?
you certainly can.
You did a pretty good job the first time. Can you reiterate that again?
No, I can't.
I got you covered.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, whatever it was. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, turn it into a working document.
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any other comments? Been quite a few, but I think we've got some good ideas documented in our minutes, so. Spend some time over a couple of cups of coffee and take a look at it and start with
I would
recommendations.
like to do that. I think that one of the first things that we should all look at it. To me, there's two things. The economic development and the housing. The housing right now seems to me to be the top number one issue of what people want, that we need to, if we're gonna do a town hall meeting and do something like that, it's an input. The other economic development is whether we explain or people understand that the economic development, what are we gonna have brought into the town? What kind of businesses are gonna move into their neighborhoods or move into the areas that they understand? They might not, they might say, well, it's too close to my, whatever. But my point is, those two things play in my mind what business you bring in and the housing, so that people are on board on where the stuff is going. And they understand that this is how the town is going to grow. But to me, number one is the housing thing, that people understand what the town's going to look for going forward in developments when people come in to say, this is what we want to build and where we're gonna build.
Yeah.
I mean, to me,
I was just gonna say, one thing I picked up on in that town hall meeting was that the town just went through zoning. Just in the last couple of years, put together a comprehensive zoning plan where you've got commercial, or you've got
For the future land use map,
a future land use map. Yeah, where do I find that?
right there. It's on the website too, under P and Z.
Okay,
It's the pretty colored maps.
and to me, when you do that,
Good to
you
know,
really
because-
explain to the people, this is where, people, do you understand where this is the plan? And this is the areas that are what they're zoned for, so you totally understand that in their
so,
mind. Cause I see every time I come to meetings, people always look at the plan and say, well, where's this or where's that? I think
so
it's
if you
important to tell the
according to
people.
this,
So it could be if we did a public thing that we maybe want to invite the chair for planning and zoning to come and be able to present that land use map. Because they'll have all of the details more
Yeah,
so than
I
we
think that
will.
the people, once they see that it's been updated, whatever it is, that this is
that's what
This is
they-
development, this is what,
this-
I guess we can explain what kind of business can go in there.
Mhm.
No, that's just.
So they're better understanding that it isn't gonna be an industrial thing
So-
going in there and different things, and I guess they understand it more.
I think we also have to understand our role in that. Planning and zoning really owns what you're saying,
Okay,
because they
Besides our water.
created it, they own it, they, are what's in that zone. Our job is to go find people to
Okay, so
get
if
in
I
that
came
zone,
here
to,
and said, I
to,
want to build-
to build there or to do things there.
correct, but then they own it, but so then when we start to do something, people don't come and say, well, why are you doing that? And seeking these people, because we're seeking those, because that's what the planning and zoning, the council has approved, so
Yeah.
just to better understand what role we're going to play is that we didn't make that. We're working with a plan that was given to us to move forward. So when they come and a public speaking or talk to us, they understand, as you said, we're not the owners of it. We're to go out and get people to try and come in and fill those spots.
So communicating those roles versus saying that we're gonna make any additional changes or anything to
Correct,
those.
Correct.
Well, I think really what you're hitting on is an education component to how a city is developed.
Yep.
This particular zone, here's what can go here.
Right.
I mean, because, yeah, I mean, if you're used to not having anything in your backyard, and then all of a sudden that lot that you did not own is sold, and you didn't even realize that it was a commercial lot or whatever, and all of a sudden something pops up there, of course you're gonna be mad. But at the same time, it kind of is what it is, so it's, the education component, I think, will help for sure.
Some of our like recommendations in section, section was it, the feedback from the community, I think is some clarity on how it can play a role in that and
Right.
help the community understand, because our EDA is newly established as well, I think the community is understanding what our role is. I think there's been a lot of questions about that. So by learning our role, we can help people learn what the process is. Is that, do you agree?
I think so. I think there's also, you know, as much as we want to have open houses and people come in, which I think is a great idea, there could be a marketing component utilizing email or websites or Facebook or whatever, where it's a series. Hey, everybody, this week's series, we're gonna talk about B1. B1 is this and this and this. These are types of businesses that fit in that type of thing, you know, and just push the information out there for people to do it, because if you have to do town halls and you have to bring everybody in every time you're gonna talk to some, it'll take forever.
I totally agree, but I just, that's my only point is, so, like I said, I second her motion and move this forward.
Yeah, we're trying to get back to our motion here. I think it's all good comments too. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That's approved. Congratulations, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's gonna be a great tool, so.
Yeah, let's not keep it the best kept secret.
Old
Right.
business,
And actually, I spoke with Jason earlier about this today, so I will add that section in and then I will be sending it to him so that he can make that release on Facebook right away tomorrow morning. So it'll be made public right away.
Nice.
And we'll get that on the website too, so people can start clicking.
So is that what we're gonna do for next month, or are we talking about that, them two sections in here? Or we talk about all of them, or?
I think I'll make a list of all of them, but I think what Jan was saying is just that we want to make sure that we put a priority on making sure that those two sections for sure get reviewed by everyone. Whereas if you don't have time to get through everything, at least we'll make sure that those two
I put a
are.
motion in that we do look definitely at the housing one. That section, we'll work so we understand that, for our next meeting, so we can talk about that one. You know, if someone else wants to put something else, but I would like to put the housing one. And first of all, to look at and go over and discuss at the next meeting.
And the economic development, you said.
Yes.
Okay, I'll put those in as line items on for our agenda next month.
Rebecca? Can you hear me?
Hey, Jason.
Hi, we'll get that posted as soon as you get that to us. We'll get that on the website and get that put out there on Facebook and some other stuff. And I will, I'll look into seeing if the city website can track anything of the downloads, Paul. I don't know what the capabilities are, though. We might have better luck with Facebook.
Appreciate it.
That'd be a good idea.
okay. Old business. City email address follow-up, anything? Update there?
How's everyone doing with their city email addresses and potentially working into them?
Keep getting errors, so I don't know if it's better for me to come in.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna chat with Renee again about what our possibilities are, because I do think that having it being troubleshooted by everybody independently is a little difficult.
And I'm happy to stop in if there's like a good time,
Okay.
and she wants to set up a time to look at it, so we're walking through it together. But it just won't let me pass a certain stuff, but.
Okay, yeah, I'll check in with her on that.
I don't think I've been assigned.
No, you haven't gotten yours
Okay.
yet. I think we've been still just trying to get everything caught up in the main office
That's
right
fine,
now.
as long as I'm not missing something.
No, and then for the Compeer financial study, I'm going to go ahead and I've finalized the budget today. And I will be sending a copy of the report along with a copy of the final budget to Compeer, and that will conclude our responsibilities to them for the grant that we got to do the community engagement. So that will be all finished.
So did we use all of the funds in, or what's your,
Yep, the funds we already got the funds, yep.
you look, was?
This is what-
Oh, yes. What was left over, I will have that for you at the next one. I don't have it in front of me right now, but whatever was left over, yes, that will go towards the CETA contract then, so that it's less money that the city has to pay on that. Cause that'll go towards the actual writing and the printing of them, so.
That'd be good timing with our 2025 budget planning.
Yeah.
By the end of September is when we have to finalize our preliminary plans. Taxes.
And then as far as walk on, just to confirm again, what Jeff asked earlier, when it comes to commercial, permits, there haven't been any pulled between last meeting and this meeting. Jason did check on that for me earlier today. So just so that you guys know that, and I do have a note that I will put that as a line item from now on. That'll just be always under our old business to add on.
Any comments with, or this is your June 24th. The report that's in the packet was from June, I thought it was.
Yeah.
Your July.
So I have a question, the Herb's property up there, what it's a commercial property and would be a commercial permit, so then the permit for him to put his building up has not been issued yet.
No, not for anything commercial,
What's that?
no commercial ones, no.
Because that is a commercial lot, so.
I believe it was approved for a building with an office in.
Is there
Had to meet some OACC guidelines and thought that was being taken care of.
It
is
would
there a
have to be.
possibility that it was prior to the June and July, you know, so it could have been approved prior to these conversations and the information being
Well, I was
gathered?
on the planning and zoning meeting when I attended back in June. And then it was supposed to come up in July again because they tabled all that stuff until July's meeting. Planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning took it off the agenda because it was just determined that since it was already B1, they just needed a permit for it. It wasn't planning, it was no longer a planning and zoning issue.
You went with.
So it is
the-
not, so, my question would be, it's still a commercial lot. Mine's a commercial lot, there's 5 commercial lots, so we have to be a commercial building on a commercial lot.
So why didn't we get the information is your question.
She said there was no permit pulled, I would just, because he said it was gonna start in August.
There,
I didn't know, I just,
Right.
my
Yeah, it
understanding.
might
is-
just not have been pulled all the
my
way yet.
Understanding is the permits, who does our permits, Riley?
The CMS,
CMS is working through the approval of
Yeah.
the permit.
okay, well, I just.
Yep.
Question.
Yeah, I'll make sure I check on it though.
So just for clarification too, is the point of sharing the information when the permit is approved or when it's applied for?
well, it goes on the list when it's applied for.
I think
In all
that's
reality,
Yeah,
that's the
that's,
fair
I wanna
part.
know about it.
exactly.
That's the fair
That-
part.
That's when it's submitted.
I just wanted to be.
No, it's
clear.
public when it's submitted, but not before any conversations. That's.
Yeah, so as soon as it's applied for, then it's public information. Yeah, I think the further up the awareness chain that we can get is to make it public is probably a good thing.
Lack of awareness is what sent people pretty upset.
If it's approved, then it's like, well, hey, wasn't even aware of this. So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
That's what the gentleman said that night, though, if it's all meets the criteria.
You won't even know.
If it meets the criteria, if they come in and they wanna build where they want, it meets the criteria. The approval, it doesn't matter whether you don't want it, the point is that the approval goes,
The building comes in for city staff and CMS to review. And if it meets the user code, then it's just, it's like building a house in R1, you know,
Which is great.
Right.
I mean, that's what you want
Right.
is
Well, I
not
just-
to have it go be a
You
variance
put on
or.
the front end of it, so
but
that's where the community.
As
gets
soon
the
as it's
button in,
applied for,
And then you move it. through.
awareness, yeah.
Yeah, and I think one thing I can do is when we do have ones that need to be, that have been applied for, I can put in there whether or not it's compliant with current zoning or if they're gonna be needing a variance or something. That way at least it'll be documented whether or not public input can be provided or not.
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah, that'd be great.
as long as it's applied for, that's. But a variance, see, building permits is a little bit different because building permits are approved when the permit is submitted. If it's a variance, it has to go through the process to be approved by P and Z and recommended to council, so. I'm sure there's a point of awareness. I'm just not sure where that point is.
Well, you don't
When
know,
it's submitted,
you probably don't know that it has to go, or it can't be determined if it has to go for additional approvals until it's applied for.
yes,
So then the process would just take
that's when
over.
it's public, yeah.
Right.
They can have their discussions with city staff, just trying to figure out where it fits in and why does it fit, but that's all preliminary to it being submitted.
Thing of it is too, is if they need to apply for a variance, there's an application there too that should be public too. That because it has to be made public for the, even have the, public hearing on it. Notification of the person. The more notifications and the more people are aware of it, the better off everything is.
I think creating a simplified process that's easy to follow will also help us meet some of the goals within, that was acknowledged in this work. Because it is a bit of a new process. It's not something our community goes through on a daily basis compared to maybe other cities that have seen consistent growth. But as our community becomes more comfortable with what the process is, they'll understand where those pieces are, and if we can help elevate it and help people understand when do they become public, where is the parts, you know, how are decisions made when a variance does need to happen, what is that process? I think that will also help to build more trust in the process itself, and it won't feel like something is hidden when it's built in part of the process. So the more that we can do that, I think it's a really good recommendation.
All right, any other comments? With that, I make a motion to meeting adjourned at.
I have some, we didn't do the June director's report yet, did you
Right.
guys need to do
Sorry?
that?
We didn't do number 7 yet.
Oh, typically if
Oh.
there's nothing outside of, what we've been doing, I don't usually go all the way through it, but if you want, I certainly can.
No, do we have to approve it or is it just a report? Or we
It's just so
accept
that you guys know what I've been doing. That also does get sent along to my boss every month. So it's just so that you guys know what I've been spending my time working on. So whether it's research requests that I've had from other city staff that I've worked on, or the community engagement, EDA packets, all that kind of stuff, just so that you guys are aware what's being done outside of just what's being presented at the meeting.
Do we have to formally accept it though? Like, do you know in this process or if other EDAs accept the report? Like, we don't approve it because it comes
Right.
from you, but do we have to make a motion to accept it or no?
No, don't.
Okay.
I mean, if it's something that you guys would like to do, I'm sure we could,
I don't know if
we could
have
do
to.
that, but you don't have to, no. Yeah, because it's more just an FYI for you guys.
Okay.
Second the motion to adjourn.
I actually have a walk-on item I'd like to speak about.
Okay, I'll withdraw that then.
So I just wanted up for discussion, I wanted to offer some just observations and hopefully this can be built into some future discussion with our group. I think as our EDA has been newly established, I know I've personally learned a lot, especially with some of the most recent conversations and experiences. And so I've tried to take some time to reflect on the processes that we've used, the roles. I know that we've asked a lot of questions here, even today, like where does the EDA role play in this process? And throughout our meetings with P and Z and even city council, some confusion on, is it an approval? Is it just an update? What happens? And so I recognize that there's a lot of learning going on. At that same time, I believe that it's really crucial for our board as an EDA to be consulted and to formally endorse projects. And that we need to be really careful about public comments that are being made that could be assumed that our board is supporting those comments. And I don't want to get into specifics about the council meeting, but Rebecca, as an executive director, I think there was like a careful line there that you may have come across as representing us as a unified voice. And I recognize that you were excited to share reports, you know, things are coming that validate that growth is important. But I think as a group, we should talk about what the process is. So if Rebecca goes and speaks in public comment, either at P and Z or council, that you fully feel supported by us. I also recognize that this project has been funky because we're getting established. We're working on the vision. We all know it's not in place. But I think it's something that's really important for us to work together towards. So perhaps a discussion item for next time is for us to really clarify, like, what is that process? So if we're going through another part where there's a development that comes forward and we feel like the EDA plays a role, that we understand what that role is, and if you're gonna public comment, add a public comment, because then you feel like you're supported. Or yesterday I was surprised, or last week I was surprised to see you comment when we hadn't had discussion as a board
Right.
about it. Recognizing again that you're speaking to this, but I think that it could have been confused. And especially with our community not understanding our rules quite yet, I think it might have created some more confusion. So with that, I would just think that if there's an opportunity for us to have some discussion about what these processes look like as we define our rules, I think that would be really helpful for our community.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's good comments.
And then just so to clarify, just so that everybody does know it, the information that I did present was strictly out of here. So it wasn't any like personal opinion information. It was straight up what was in the feedback from the community. So just to make sure that it's clear on there, but I think you're absolutely right. So we'll make sure that that's a,
And I have some questions, and maybe it's more at the staff level, like in other cities, staff typically comment at different times rather than in public comment. So I have some questions, just like if you're looking for staff reports, like from the city engineer or from other city staff, it comes in at a different point and not a bit during public comment. So those are some of my questions too, about like, where does the EDA participate, or you as an executive director of the EDA participate in that space? Because again, I think it comes across confusing when it is public comment, when it's general public comment, or the applicant speaking. It just causes, I think, some confusion about what's happening at that time, and
absolutely.
perhaps assumptions or things that might come across the wrong way. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I think that point is probably so important to potentially put that on the meeting to really formulate how we make a decision to get behind something, right? Because everything has to be based first on what we all, or what the code is, you know, and if something comes in and it's gonna be contentious because it's got this variance and that variance, and, you know, we almost just have to stay out of it because, you know, just,
And we're not approvers or anything of code. That's
No.
P and Z recommendations.
yeah, we have nothing to do with, I mean, the basic get behind it is if it fits in the box that's been created of what they're trying to do.
or if
You
they're
know-
eventually using a financial tool that we have, or
Right.
land that we
And
eventually
we would have
require,
already-
or wherever, yeah.
We would have
At this
already
point.
had them go over the hurdle of it being fitting inside of what we're doing in order to get behind it and get financing and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, it's very important for us, to your point, to be on the same page relevant to, you know, at the same time, we want wins to be able to go back out to the developers and say, look at what Orinoco is doing. We're doing this. Now we need this component. We need this component. You know, we want to report and promote out how successful we are relevant to the development of the community. So, I mean, that's a really good point that you're making.
Yep. And if I did overstep, I apologize. I was asked to make some comments, so I put together something and went in and did it, but
Well, perhaps that's what we discuss at
Yeah.
the next meeting, is what is that process, so
Yep.
that if there is a piece of our role in that step, that there's some collective discussion, because it is a unified voice that I think you represent. So it gives us the opportunity to provide feedback or insight, so that again, you're representing us as a people.
But all in all, we just need to realize that we have our boundaries too, like the other groups do too. And like, we don't want to be stepping over planning and zoning's boundaries and make it look like we're stepping in their place. Because sometimes this group isn't gonna want that heat. This group's gonna wanna be able to support.
right. But I do want to clarify that this group is the economic development group should be knowing what's going on in planning and zoning and should be having discussions about the things that are going on in planning and zoning. So like for the Hamilton project, for example, the reason why I keep wanting to put it on the agenda to discuss is because when activity does end up happening, we need to be able to make a recommendation saying, oh yes, council, we approve or we disapprove, we support this part, we don't support this part. So I think having those discussions continuously is important. I know that both of you are on council, but there's only two of you here, which means you're not making any discussions outside that are making any decisions. So I do think that it's important to make sure that we continue having those discussions, so.
I think it's important that we're together too, is that we understand the plan. So if someone does come to us, we know that it will, when they start to talk to us, it either fits or doesn't fit. If they ask us and say, you know, if where you want, what you want to do fits the criteria, whatever it is, so we know that, so you don't move ahead and say, well, you know, it's what you're trying to ask us to
Right.
do to help you out, put money towards something or help you, it doesn't fit. So I'm not gonna, you know, do that. So if we know our role as far as where they can build, how they can build, what can go on, we understand that when the developers come in and talk and we get involved, we know and say, you know what? Bad idea. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna go this way. So we know, and I think it shows our involvement and our knowledge to do that. So
Yeah.
again, I think it's all what you said here tonight is very important.
Yeah, because if the Economic Development Authority doesn't get a chance to put any input in and council already makes its decision or zoning, planning and zoning already makes its decision, we've lost our ability to have any impact on a project. And that's really what we're here for, is to be able to do that homework, do those things that are looking to find out about what the pros are, what the cons are, what the effect is on the city, what the effect is on our tax base. Because that's what we're here for. So it's, once we kind of are able to provide that input, then we know we've done our job. Because then once council or planning and zoning makes their decisions, we know that we've put in the information that we needed to, whether it's again, for or against. And then it goes through, because if they've already made their decision, we've lost that opportunity.
And that's an excellent point. I think that's all part of our infancy as an EDA versus somebody's had one for 30 years. So
Yep.
I guess we're looking for your leadership in that and with your, with all your partners and other cities to help us guide us through that process.
Yep.
Identifying what it really needs to, how do we fit in with P and Z and council and we're still kind of, I think we have this done and that's
We're rolling.
great. That's behind us. So that's great information, but we're ready for the next step of working with somebody and in the right process.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks for the comments. Any more public input? Welcome, I'm sorry. All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? 7:35. Thank you very much. Next month date is August 27th. Any problems with anybody not being here?
No, and I apologize, I wasn't here last month. I thought the meeting was on Thursday night. So I was ready to come Thursday night.
There's one there
realized-
right there.
You showed up and nobody was here.
We sign you all to work when you miss, just so you're aware.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's because my office days are usually Thursdays unless.
Yeah, there wasn't any,
Thank you for coming in.
really interested in it.
Yes, my office days are always Thursdays except
On the Tuesday.
on the Tuesday when it's our meeting day.
I'll be back.
Yes, thank you guys very much. And I will get that sent out right away tomorrow morning, that section that is randomly missing.
I'll watch for it and I'll make sure that it gets posted in our.
Yep.
Yeah, I will.
For you,
We'll
so.
touch base.
Perfect.
Share through our social channels and all the neighborhoods. I'll make sure all the people get it.
Oh,
So
perfect. It's great work.